Let's get started. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Alison Riddiford. I am a certified nutrition consultant and the founder of Serenity Nutrition and Wellness here in Scottsdale. I love to work one-on-one with people, but my very favorite thing is to share information in a forum like this where I can reach a lot of people. I'm super excited to be here with you. Might seem a little strange that there's a nutrition presentation as part of a career fair. I'm not going to help you put your resume together or give you tips on interviewing skills, but what I'll share with you today helps you in every single part of your life, your career and your personal life. Employers want people who show up. They want you to have energy throughout the day. They want you to be able to think clearly and do your job well. Plus, they don't want you taking a lot of sick days. Everything I'm going to talk to you today about will help with all of those things. Because what's causing all these problems? It's the food that we're putting into our body. This past year has been really tough. COVID-19 is a huge wake-up call that we need to work on our immune systems. A vast majority of those cases where people get severely ill or even die from COVID had underlying issues. It might have been high blood pressure, heart disease, diabetes, pre-diabetes, even just obesity. Why did the US fare so much worse than a number of other countries? Because those things are running rampant in our country. And guess what's causing it? The food that we're eating. It's time to change all that. The very best thing that we can all do right now is build up our immune systems. Everything I talk about today is going to help you do just that. I'm going to get started. I'm going to share my screen, a couple tips. One, if you double click on the presentation, you'll be able to see my slides a little better. And second, if you have questions throughout the presentation about what I'm talking about or about anything in the field of nutrition in general, please put it in the chat. I have a moderator that's monitoring that, and we will have a nice bulk of time after my presentation for a Q&A session. All right, let's get started. Why am I here? I spent over 12 years struggling with various health problems. I had anxiety, mood swings, IBS, thyroid cancer, high blood sugar, headaches, joint pain, a lot of nasty stuff. And this led to a lot of uncomfortable days. For 12 years, I searched with doctors looking for answers to these problems. I finally hit rock bottom. I did not find those answers. And I went out there to do my own research and educate myself. And here's what I found out. Everything I was experiencing had to do with what I was eating. And I thought it was a healthy diet at the time. That experience, along with what we're going through today, is what inspired me to want to share this information with you. I don't have any products to sell. I am not going to promote one specific type of eating, one way of eating. I'm not going to try to convince you to go vegan or give up all carbohydrates. All I want to do is inspire you to change your own health. And I want to educate you about the importance of food when it comes to the prevention and the treatment of disease. All of these will make you better in your job. Now, it's hard to figure out where to start with nutrition because there is a boatload of conflicting information out there. You guys have all read it. One day something's good for you, and the next day it's taboo. Here is something that I do know is true. There is no one right way to eat for everybody. We each have our own biological makeup, and it is unique. So even healthy food sometimes doesn't sit right with certain people. That being said, there are some universal healthy and unhealthy concepts And those are the things that I'm going to talk about today because they apply to every single one of us. Over the past 50 years, we've been fed so much bad information. And one of the worst things we've been told is just, if you want to lose weight, eat less, move more. Well, it's a bunch of baloney. It doesn't work. If it worked, us in the US, we would be so much healthier. You can't outrun a poor diet. What matters is not necessarily the quantity of the food that you're eating, but it's the quality. If you eat 100 calories of salmon, for example, that sends a very different signal once it's inside your body than 100 calories of a Snickers bar. The salmon is going to promote health and it's going to keep you full. And the Snickers bar is going to promote disease and you're starving 30 minutes later. As a starting place to eating healthy, I'm going to pare down all of my nutrition advice into this next screen. A healthy diet avoids 3 main culprits. That's it, just 3. If you remove or significantly reduce these 3 things in your diet, you're going to be on your way to good health. Theoretically, it is that simple. Not always easy to start implementing, but it is that simple. 3 things. If the food doesn't fall into one of these categories, most likely it's going to be a healthy choice for you. I refer to these things as the 3 bad guys. Bad guy number 1, it's not going to surprise anyone. It's been getting a lot of press these days, and that is sugar. Now, there's 2 kinds of sugar. There's natural sugar, such as that found in fruits, vegetables, and unsweetened dairy products. And then there's added sugar. It's the added sugar that is causing the problems. I used to think sugar would just cause cavities, but I know a lot better than that now, and it causes many more problems than that, which you'll see in a bit. The second bad guy is refined carbohydrates, basically processed food. Think cereal, bread, pasta, chips, tortillas, pastries, even fruit juice. The third bad guy is not really talked about as much. It's even touted as this heart-healthy superhero, and that is industrialized seed oils. I'm going to get into detail on each one of these things, but before I do, I just want to do a quick refresher on some basic nutrition terms. Food is made up of 3 macronutrients. You guys have heard of all of these. We've got our protein, our fat, our carbohydrates. Protein, that provides the building blocks of our body. That's important for the growth and the repair of the entire body, down to the cellular level. We cannot survive without consuming protein. Fat, I like to think of as the maintenance macro. It really keeps things running smoothly. It's also key for brain health. Our brain is 60% fat, and it can be a backup source for energy. We cannot survive without consuming healthy fats. Last is carbohydrates. Now, all carbohydrates break down into glucose or sugar once they get inside your body. This provides the body with an energy source. The problem is, so many of us are putting way too much of this energy inside our body, and we can't use it all up. And the energy that we don't use gets stored as fat. Now, some carbohydrates break down into sugar very quickly, and those are called simple or refined carbohydrates. That's the bad guy. There's also complex carbohydrates, and those break down into glucose much slower. Here's kind of an interesting fact. We have to consume protein to survive. We have to consume fat to survive. We don't have to consume carbohydrates. I'm not telling you to give up all carbohydrates, but if you did, you will survive and can thrive. Let's talk a little more about them. Here are some examples. This top arrow, the red arrow, that contains the simple or refined carbohydrates. That's the fast sugar. It breaks down quickly, causing this flood of glucose to go into your bloodstream. Now, of course, we have regular table sugar in this category, but there's also rice, bread, soda, cereal, fruit juice. Those simple carbs that are in the liquid form, those are the fastest acting. The bottom arrow, the green one, those are the complex carbohydrates, basically carbohydrates that come from whole foods. Nuts, seeds, fruits, vegetables, legumes. These foods contain fiber, protein, and some fats, and that slows that uptake of glucose into your bloodstream. It also provides you with a number of vitamins and minerals. Those are the healthy carbohydrates. That top box made up the bulk of my diet for a very long time, and I didn't think there was anything wrong with it because it was low in fat. Boy, was I wrong. Let's take a quick look at what happens when you eat those foods that are in the top box. The very first thing that happens is that those carbohydrates break down into sugar, and the sugar or glucose enters your bloodstream, hence raising the blood sugar level. Now at that point, your pancreas shoots out this really important hormone called insulin. And insulin's job is to instruct the body to pull those glucose cells out of the blood and put them somewhere. So that lowers your blood sugar level. But now those glucose molecules have to go somewhere. Where do they go? Well, they can be used for energy. But not many of us go out and run 5 miles after a bowl of pasta. So the other thing that can happen is those molecules are stored inside your fat cells, which then expand, making you larger. This simple diagram here explains how eating a lot of sugar or simple carbohydrates leads to weight gain. The process is the same for all of us. The only difference is the degree of how high and how low those blood sugar levels go. If you eat this way once in a while, you have cake or you eat a lot of carbohydrates for one day, it's no big deal. Our body absolutely knows how to deal with it, and you will be just fine. But if you're eating these foods day after day, meal after meal, eventually the system just sort of wears out. The insulin can't do its job very well, and you end up with too much glucose in your blood. And that is called diabetes. Believe it or not, it's estimated that 50% of US adults are either pre-diabetic or diabetic. 50%. And the vast majority of the people who fall into that category have no idea that that's where they are. This is a huge problem, and it's the direct result of how much sugar we all eat. Sugar and processed foods, they don't just affect our blood sugar levels. They also mess with our head. Eating these foods has been linked with anxiety, depression, ADHD, even mental illness. I'm not saying that it's the sole cause of these conditions, but it absolutely contributes to each and every one of them. There is a lot of medication out there being prescribed to treat these things, and it absolutely is needed in some cases, but I would love for people to change their diet first and see what happens, because oftentimes these things can be resolved. These foods are also addictive. When you eat sugar, simple carbs, it activates the dopamine receptors in your brain. That's our pleasure center. That's the area that gets activated if you take drugs or drink alcohol, for example. People blame themselves when they don't have the willpower to stop eating the cakes and cookies or any simple carbs. But the fact is, your body becomes chemically dependent on them. Now, if diabetes and injured brains don't worry you enough, these foods are associated with just about every disease that we fear the most. I mentioned some, and you can read through the others. And that last one, if it couldn't get worse, sugar even causes wrinkles. None of us want those. Now you might be thinking, this doesn't apply to me. I'm healthy, I look good, I feel good, but it applies to all of us. As I mentioned, eating sugar reacts the same way in all of our bodies. The difference is our sensitivity to it and the time that it takes for that poor nutrition to turn into disease. With a consistently poor diet high in these things, it's not a matter of if you're going to have one or more of these complications. It's really just a question of when. So how much sugar is too much? Well, the World Health Organization issued some guidelines, and they recommend eating no more than 25 grams of added sugar per day. That's about 6 teaspoons of sugar. Well, guess how much the average American consumes per day? 94 grams of sugar. That's over 23 teaspoons. And the amount our body needs? 0. Sugar is not a nutrient, nor is it essential to our health. That is a big pile of sugar. Now, you'd be surprised at the amount of sugar added to products, even those that are touted as healthy. With 3 out of 4 of the products in the grocery store containing added sugar, you have to be super careful when you're shopping. Turn those packages over and read the label so you can find the hidden sugar. Here's some good examples of hidden sugar. Just 2/3 a cup of flavored yogurt, 22 grams of sugar. A tall chai tea latte from Starbucks, 32 grams of sugar. And a standard size Jamba Juice Dream Machine smoothie, 89 grams of sugar. That is over 3 days worth of sugar in just one drink. These are all things I used to consume as part of what I thought was a healthy diet. I was totally unaware how much they were damaging my health. Here's another product that appears to be healthy. It's even organic, 100% whole grain bread. Surely this is a safe choice. Let's check out the back label. It's important to always look at the serving size. And for this product, the serving size is 1 slice. And you can see here that 1 slice of this bread has 4 grams of sugar in it. You have a couple pieces of toast in the morning, sandwich at lunch, and you've just added 8 grams of sugar to your day with something that you bought because you thought it was healthy. I cannot emphasize enough how important it is to read labels. All right, we talked about the first 2 bad guys, sugar, refined carbohydrates. Now let's move on to bad guy number 3. Industrialized seed oils, or what's commonly called vegetable oil. We have been, well, some examples of those would be canola, corn, soy, sunflower, safflower. We've been led to believe that these oils are really healthy. And there's a few reasons why we've been led to believe that. The first is they have vegetable in their name, so it just sounds healthy. The second is that natural fats like butter and animal fat, they've been vilified over the years. And the third is that the mass marketing of these so-called heart-healthy oils has been really effective. However, these oils are anything but heart healthy. And they're found everywhere. Even if you choose not to have them, the bottles of these things in your pantry, they're in most packaged food. Here's just a few examples. The one that really gets me here is baby formula. That is so sad. It does not need to be in there. Later today, go home and look in your fridge and your pantry, pull products out and read the labels. I can almost guarantee that anything that's in a package is going to contain corn, canola, sunflower, safflower, or soybean oil. You might find them in your salad dressings, mayonnaise, cookies, chips, canned goods, and even in bread. Now, fortunately, there are companies that are now coming out with healthier versions of these products using healthy oil, like 100% olive, avocado, or coconut oil. But you have to read the ingredient labels in order to find this out. Here's another place that these oils are just everywhere. Restaurant food. The oils are cheap and restaurants have to watch their bottom lines. They use these oils in sauces, salad dressings, on the grill, sauté pans, and of course in the fryer. Simply put, they use a lot of these oils. Now, I am not saying never eat out, especially now. Please go support your local restaurants. But when you do eat out, be aware of this and make choices that would most likely contain the least amount of the oils. Why are these oils so bad? And what do they do to us? Well, here's why they're not your best choice. And it all really starts with the processing method, which is pretty disgusting. It involves gathering these nice, healthy seeds, and then they're put in a big tank where a slurry is made. To extract the oil from these seeds, high heat and dangerous chemicals are used, like hexane. And then what you end up with is basically this rancid sludge. The sludge is then deodorized and bleached, so it looks nice and pretty, like this bottle that's in the middle of the screen. And many times during this process, trans fats are produced along the way. Any benefit that the oil in that seed had initially has been destroyed by the heat and the chemical baths. Once these get inside our body, we have a really hard time digesting them. Inside of us, they tend to oxidize or go back to being rancid sludge. And our body doesn't like that. It makes it angry. And that produces inflammation. You all know what inflammation is. You twist your knee and it blows up like a balloon. And that's the inflammation on the outside of our body. But inflammation also happens on the inside of our body. But unfortunately, we can't see it and we really can't feel it. So we don't even know it's there. When that inflammation becomes chronic, it is a problem because chronic inflammation is at the root of just about every disease there is, especially heart disease. What other conditions have these oils been linked to? It's a pretty unpleasant list. Now, you probably noticed a lot of crossover from that slide about what sugar and simple carbohydrates do. These oils are just as bad, but they are not talked about as much. Instead of stocking your pantry with these oils, here's where I recommend storing them. Now that you threw all those seed oils away, though, what are you going to replace them with? What oil should you use? What fats should you be eating? Here are some examples. These are truly heart-healthy fats. Now notice it includes saturated fats like coconut oil and butter. We were told for the longest time that you're going to eat those fats and then they're going to congeal up and clog your arteries. That was based on studies that have been proven wrong. Saturated fat is so important to our body. It's needed to provide the structural integrity of every single cell we have. That's pretty important. I mentioned earlier how important fat is for the brain. but it's not just the brain that relies on it. Those fatty acids, they really heal your body from the inside out. So if you want glowing skin, for example, you can put lotion on all day. But if you are not moisturizing your body from the inside out by feeding it fats, you are never going to get anywhere. Here's some signs that you might not be getting enough healthy fat. Dry skin, dry hair, losing hair, dry eyes, hormonal problems, always feeling hungry, or even having trouble concentrating. As I said earlier, fat really helps our entire system to run smoothly. And for all of you that grew up in the 80s like I did and were brainwashed into thinking that if we eat fat, we're going to get fat, it is time to reprogram your thinking. Eating fat was never the culprit. It was all the sugar and processed food that they replaced those healthy fats with. Okay, that's been a lot of information, and you're probably thinking, help, I don't know what to eat when I go home and make dinner tonight. Where do I start? Well, you've started. Education leads to awareness, which leads to change. Do not make your improving your health super complicated. You don't need to count calories, track macros, chase ketones, do crazy detoxes. Just eat real food. What's real food? It's food that comes in a state as close to its original state as possible. If it runs, jumps, swims, flies, or grows in the ground, that is real food, and it's going to be a good choice for you. Defeat those bad guys. Reduce or remove just these 3 things in your diet. Your health will improve. You now understand that once these things are inside your body, they're going to cause inflammation. They wreak havoc with your blood sugar. They hurt and dampen your immune system, and they increase your risk of disease. Become aware of where these bad guys are in your diet and take some steps to reduce or remove them, and see how you feel. You are your own best science experiment. You got to work to figure it out. Listen to your body. Figure out what works for you. Getting to a place of feeling good, I can tell you, is all the motivation that you will ever need to continue eating a healthy diet. Along the way, I urge you, just be patient with yourself, be patient with the process, because real change takes time. Change doesn't have to be huge. Small, steady changes over a period of time lead to dramatic results. I do not promote diets. I work with people to try to make permanent lifestyle changes. Those are sustainable. Diets are not sustainable. Where's your rock bottom? Don't wait until you or somebody that you love gets diagnosed with something and then start figuring it out. Or like me, don't waste 12 years not feeling good. Start making those small changes today. Thank you for your attention, and I would love to take questions. They can be general nutrition questions, or they can be about the presentation.
There are a couple questions in the Q&A. The first one is from Kyle. He says he often eats salted almonds as a snack throughout the day to keep up his energy, which he would normally consider a good guy. But now that he's heard you talk, he's recognizing that there's vegetable oil associated with those, keeping the almonds and salt together. So he's wondering if he should reconsider that as a bad guy.
Well, I would say in general, there are many worse snacks that you can be snacking on throughout the day. I do not like that they add those vegetable oils to the almonds. You could always eat raw almonds, and They're actually really tasty. I used to always love salted, but the raw almonds are pretty good. And the nice thing about it is it's easier to control the quantity that you eat. You don't tend to overeat when the salt is left off of them. And I'm gonna have to start looking at packages because there probably are some nuts that contain, maybe use an almond oil to keep that salt on. But I'm proud of you for turning the package around and noticing that even on something that just seems like a whole food, it does have a vegetable oil with it.
Well done, Kyle. We have another question from Max Prasad asking how to identify carbs from a label. What's the best way?
Well, there's a couple ways. When you turn the package around, you'll have your nutrition label. Something brand new that just started at the beginning of the year is companies have to list the added sugar grams to the back of the label. So it will say added sugar, X number of grams, which is super helpful because if you want to try to stay under that recommended 25 grams, you can track that through the day. There will also be a number that says total carbohydrates, of which the sugar is part of that number. I hope that makes sense. So when you look at the nutrition label, it will say total carbohydrates. It will not tell you if it's a simple carbohydrate or a complex carbohydrate.
Thank you for breaking that down for us. We had a comment from one of the participants, Amanda Kuda, who said that prevention is always better and easier than the cure. And
not just easier and better, but so much less expensive. Sometimes people complain, well, I don't want to buy, and I don't think that you have to buy all organic food, but sometimes people will say fruits and vegetables and the good meats and salmon are just too expensive. And my thought is you can pay a little bit more now, or you can pay a lot more later for medication and medical treatment.
a follow-up question from Max on the carbohydrates, asking if there's a way to find out if there are refined carbohydrates in a product from the nutrition facts or the ingredient list.
Yes. In the one, if it's in a package, it's probably a refined carbohydrate, unless it's a package of raw nuts or seeds, something that you can identify as a whole food. If it's in a package, it's probably refined. Anything that has flour in it, that is a highly processed, simple carbohydrate. When you read the label, any flour, any source of sugar, and the fact that it needs a label tells me it's probably a simple carbohydrate. I hope that makes sense, but ask again if it didn't.
All right, there was a question regarding kind of the brown rice versus white rice and how much better, or is it at all?
That is a debatable topic, and it does depend on what your own medical status is. If you are a person that has problems with blood sugar, they absolutely both spike your blood sugar and they need to be avoided. If you are pre-diabetic or diabetic, those things need to be avoided. Brown rice contains the white rice is more refined than brown rice. White rice is polished down to just the starch. Brown rice still contains a part of the husk, and so you do get a little fiber, and the effect on your blood sugar may be dampened or slowed down by that. One thing that I often will recommend to people is maybe try some quinoa, because most people are not eating enough protein. And quinoa, which is actually a seed, not a grain, it's actually fairly high in protein and contains a lot of fiber and does not spike the blood sugar as much as either one of those rices.
That makes sense. Thank you for explaining that. And I've always wondered myself, so I was kind of glad somebody brought it up. So thank you, Alison. All right. Are there any other questions folks might have? Alison, are there any last thoughts you would like to leave us with?
If you go home today, or you might already be home, but if later today you think of a question, my website is on the information here today contained in on the website. And please, there's a contact me button there. Reach out to me. If you have a question, just shoot me an email and I am happy to answer it.
There is one other question that just came through regarding intermittent fasting. What are your thoughts on that?
I was waiting for that question. People always ask me about intermittent fasting. I am a huge fan. Now intermittent fasting, there are so many different definitions of how it works. And for those of you that don't know, it's really just giving your body a period of time when you're not eating. The simplest intermittent fasting is to make sure you have at least 12 hours with no food going into your system. I'm a fan because our bodies need to rest. If we are digesting all the time, we're not healing, our immune system doesn't have time to work, we're not storing memories. Our priority is digestion. So if you are interested in intermittent fasting, I would suggest to start, you finish dinner, just go for 12 hours. So you finish dinner at 6:30 at night. Don't eat or drink anything. You can drink water, but otherwise don't eat or drink anything before bed. And when you get up in the morning, you could have plain coffee or tea, but don't eat any breakfast until at least 6:30 in the morning. And at that point, you've just fasted 12 hours. It's really good for your body, and it's a great place to start. Once that's easy, I would recommend pushing breakfast out maybe a half hour every few days. And if you can get up to about a 16-hour period, that's when a lot of good stuff kicks in. It's called autophagy. It's the body's little vacuum cleaner going around and eating up all the dead and damaged and toxic cells in our body. So that would be a really good way to start if you're interested in intermittent fasting. But I am a huge fan, and there are many ways it can be done.
Interesting. And I've never heard that term, autophagy.
Autophagy.
So very, very interesting. And thank you, Kyle, for that question. We have another question from Max. He wants to know your thoughts on the keto diet.
The keto diet can be really helpful for many people. It came about initially as a treatment for seizures, and it's been around a long time. And the reason it works for seizures is because in people with really bad seizure disorders, now this is not 100% of people, but in a lot of them, their brain stops being able to use glucose as a source of fuel. And what happens with the keto diet is your body stops using the glucose for fuel, and it starts producing something called ketones. And your brain works really well on ketones. People use it for a number of reasons. It's really good for treating different autoimmune disorders because a lot of them are food sensitivities. It's very good for treating diabetes because you're not fueling your body with glucose when you already have too much in your blood. It is not something that I would just say to someone, well, you need to go on a keto diet. For those of you who don't know what it is, keto is short for ketogenic, and it is a high fat, moderate protein, very low carbohydrate diet. it can be super beneficial. If you want to know specifically if it would be a good choice for you, please reach out to me and I'll at least give you my opinion on it. The trouble people get into is they kind of go half keto. So they're eating all this fat and they're eating all this protein. And then every Friday they're eating pizza, and it just kind of ruins the whole thing. And that's a recipe for actually adding fat as opposed to burning that fat for energy, which is what it's supposed to do.
All right, thank you. And I really appreciate the history of keto. I had no idea that it started, as a treatment for folks who suffer from seizures. It's really interesting. A question that I have is fueling my body for workouts. I feel like I'm always struggling to find the right time to eat or the right things to eat ahead of a workout, and when is best to work out.
That's going to be one of those situations where you're going to be your own science experiment. People, well, one, your body is going to pick a fuel, and it has two choices. The first is glucose, and it's always going to go to glucose first. The theory behind carb loading is putting all this glucose in your body, and then you go burn, 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 which is fine. People do that. But then they usually crash afterwards. You can also use fat as a fuel source, but that takes a little while for your body to become fat adapted. So while I personally prefer to work out fasted, I feel better. I am focused on the working out and not having any digestive issues happening at the same time. But that's just me, and that's what works for me. You might fuel yourself with bacon and eggs, which is a protein and fat breakfast. And once your body is fat adapted, that will give you a lot of energy. So I don't know if I'm answering your question, but I would not eat closer to 1 hour before you work out, depending on the type of workout you're doing. Give your body a little time to digest. I would not eat too much. And I would make sure that you, especially in Arizona in the summertime, I'd make sure that you're salting your food really well, because we lose a lot of sodium when we work out. But it's what makes you feel best. That old breakfast is the most important meal of the day. It's a myth. There is no science that backs that up. If you feel better not eating it, don't eat it.
Beautiful. I love that you're empowering us to do what feels good for our bodies. A question that came up in the chat is, what is your opinion on workout supplements, like those pre-workout drinks?
For the most part, they're probably not doing much for you. If you are a professional bodybuilder preparing for a competition, there may be a place for some of those branched chain amino acids or something like that. But usually it's just wasted money. I really encourage people to get their protein, not from a protein shake powder, get it from real food. That's what I like seeing people fuel themselves with. So most of those scientifically have not been proven to do much.
That's good to know. More money to go shopping with, in my opinion.
There you go.
All right. I really love how interactive our group is being today. Are there any other thoughts folks might have? Anything else you'd like to know? All right. Thank you so much, Alison. I'll hand it back to you if you'd like to let folks know again how to reach you if they'd like more information.
All right. There are links in the notes from the conference today, but my website is serenitynutritionandwellness.com. And then I put my Twitter and my LinkedIn are also in the notes down below my name. And truly, if you think of a question, just shoot me an email. And I am happy to work with people one-on-one if you think that that is something that you need or you know somebody who's interested in that. I also give talks on many different subjects. I could do an entire talk on intermittent fasting, for example, or the ketogenic diet. So if you or your workplace are interested in having me come talk, that is something I'm very open to doing. Good luck, everybody. I hope that the career fair has been helpful and that if you're seeking employment, I hope you find it. If you're looking for employees, I hope you find them.